All right, you guys, we are back. We are going to be reading a fiction story. Now, we know that all fiction stories have three parts. The beginning, which will let you know the main characters, and the setting, where the story takes place. In the middle of the text, there will usually be a problem, right? A problem that the characters are going to have to figure out a way to solve. At the end of the story, there is the resolution, which is how they solved the problem, right? Which how they solved the problem. And so we're going to read a mystery suspense adventure story called The Lost Dog. And when you look and you read the titles of fiction stories, a lot of times the title is going to have important clues that's going to help you figure out the plot. So just by reading the title, The Lost Dog, I can tell you right now, the middle of the story, the plot is probably going to be about figuring out how to find the lost dog. But I could be wrong. So I'm going to play a little bit of music and give you time to read this text before I read it. All right, we're playing Kaylee Williams' song right now. You ready to turn up? All right, now I'm going to read it to you. Oh no, what will we do? Brian and Joan had gone hiking in the snow with their dog, Max. Now Max was gone, and it was almost dark. Here, Max, here, boy, they called. Brian tried to run. His snowshoes were too big and heavy. What if a bear eats our dog? Cried Joan. Just then she heard a crack and a splash. Over there, she yelled. Brian and Joan ran to the side of a frozen lake. There was Max. He had broken through the ice. Now he was trying to swim in the water. Quick, quick, give me your hiking stick, said Brian. Now hold it onto my leg. Brian threw himself onto the snow and scooted toward the lake. He held one end of the stick. Joan held the other. Finally, he could reach Max. He grabbed the dog's collar and pulled him out. You're safe now, boy, he said. Wow. Now remember, everything good comes from the text. Well, in the beginning of the story, we know that it's about a brother and a sister, Brian and Joan. Where are they at? They're somewhere hiking in the snow. What's the problem? They lost their dog, Max. And Max was on a frozen lake that cracked. Well, what was the resolution? Well, they saved Max's life by scooting out on the frozen lake, holding onto a stick that made them long enough to grab Max by his collar and pull him out the water. So let's look at these questions. Number 1. Where are Brian and Joan hiking? B. In the sun. C. In the snow. D. By a river. A. On a lake. The answer is they were hiking in the snow. That came directly from the text. Brian and Joan had gone hiking in the snow. Number 2. What happens to Max? Is it A, a bear eats him? B, he drowns in the lake? C, he falls in the lake? D, he saves Brian. The answer is C. Max falls in the lake. Number 3. In this story, frozen means frozen. Put that in your mind bank. New vocabulary word. If something is frozen, what does that mean? D, blizzard. C, ice cream. B, ice cubes. Or A, covered with ice. The correct answer is A, covered with ice. What is true about this story? True means it happened. It's not make-believe. It's a fact. What is true about this story? Max is wearing a leash. Joan grabs Max's collar. Max is wearing a collar. The lake is not frozen. Well, they were able to save Max because he was wearing a collar, and the little boy, Brian, grabbed Max's collar. This was tricky. It was not Joan who grabbed Max's collar, so that's why B was incorrect. Max was wearing a collar. We know that because the boy, Brian, grabbed Max by the collar. So the correct answer for this was C. So, the answer was C. Number 3, frozen is A, covered with ice. Number 2, what happens to Max? C, he falls in the lake. Number 1, where are Brian and Joan hiking? C, in the snow. That's what you should have had for this text. All right. Rocking and rolling, loving and learning.